And you've obviously been over there now for, I think, almost 2 years. How have you found it? How have you enjoyed playing for the club and obviously sampling German football?
Yeah, it's been amazing. Obviously but yeah, I've been here 18 months now. It was obviously a big change in the beginning. Having played my whole career in Scotland and England, and but the cultural change in the footballing environment was something I wanted to experience over here. And yeah, the club's been amazing. And we've on the pitch, obviously last season we fell just short of promotion, and this season, after a bit of a slow start, we've had a couple of really good results coming off the back of the winter break. So yeah, I really, enjoy life here, and the football culture and everything around it. So it's been that kind of freshness I wanted to have in my career.
Yeah, you've sort of touched on it there, but my next question was just around. I was looking at the league table, obviously sort of mid-table, but have been on quite a decent run. Do you think promotion is still within your sights, or is it just a case of trying to do as well as possible?
Well, I think after the start we had, I think coming off the back of the break after the World Cup, it was important that we started well. And we've gone out and won our first two games, and it's given us a bit of a platform to start kind of looking up. Obviously that gap now is a big one, but if you can put a little run together in any second division, anything's possible. So we'll still go week to week at the moment, but we're definitely looking up rather than down.
Mhm. And you talked before as well about playing in a new country. How much has that helped you develop both on the pitch and off the pitch?
Probably the thing I've benefited most from is the kind of decreased schedule. Just you have so much more time here because you really only play week to week. We do have the occasional midweek game, but it's quite rare. So during the week, you have so much more time to prepare tactically and really work on things as a team. So the structure of the games tends to be a bit more controlled just because you have so much more time to work on things. And I think that's helped my game in a lot of ways. And it's probably helped me see football in a different way as well. And as you know, I've played a lot of football over the years, and yeah, I have felt a big change over the last 18 months. And yeah, that's probably the biggest change I could say from a football perspective.
So, in contrast to that, would you say the sort of schedule in the UK is a bit too full on, or did you like that as well? Is it just different?
It's just different. Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I think in the same way that, if you get beat on a Saturday, you can kind of put it right on a Tuesday night, but in the same way, when it does feel like it snowballs when you're on a bad run, but in the same way, when you get that good momentum and the games come thick and fast, it can be a huge boost for you too. So yeah, it's just different. It's a different environment. There's just not as much. There's never been as much of an emphasis on training. And during my time in the UK, because it is just play, recover, play, recover. So it's just an interesting contrast.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, when you decided to go out there, you'd been at Hibs for, I think it was around half a season, just a short time. I think the fans were keen to see you stay. You talked before about wanting to just sample a new style of football and things like that. Was that purely down to your decision, or were there other factors in
Yeah,
the?
there were other factors. Obviously, during the pandemic, found myself without a club for a substantial amount of time, and as a lot of players, I'm sure a lot of other players did. Um, it was like a real time of perspective, I guess. And when you look at football in your life and your career, and I was so grateful for Hibs for taking a chance on me. I hadn't played football in nearly 10 months, and they basically brought me straight back in. And obviously we had a good few months and finished third, cup final. Obviously didn't go our way, but off the back of that, and we were in good conversations about potentially you know staying there, and growing on what we'd done over those few months. But when an opportunity came for that kind of a massive change in my life, and it just felt like the right time and the right moment. And obviously Hibs gave me the platform to be able to come here and start something totally new. And yeah, I'm obviously the club itself was as big appeal as anything. I've always been interested in football and politics and culture, and this club brings all of that together in kind of one perfect storm. And it felt kind of too good to be true in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And just, I don't know, you're obviously under contract just now, but look, in maybe a couple of years' time, if the opportunity did arise, would you be open to a return to Hibs or perhaps just Scottish football in general?
Scottish football's always gonna have a place in my heart. I've spent most of my playing career, like most of my career has been played there. And obviously from Scottish background, my dad and played in Scottish youth teams and everything. I still follow the league closely. The Australian connection with Scottish football is growing even stronger, now with the players that are doing so well there. And it's somewhere that will always interest me, and you never know what's going to happen down the line. I have just extended my contract here with the club, so I don't think I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. But somewhere down the line, it would always be nice to come back and play. In Scotland, where my second home is really.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. I just wanted to touch a bit about the World Cup. Obviously, you were there with Australia. How special was that to play in the World Cup and to not only play but to get through the group stages into the knockouts?
Yeah, it just still hard to kind of put it all together in my mind. It was such a whirlwind experience. We obviously exceeded all expectations that probably everybody had for us, and we probably even, although we had so much self-belief, we probably even surprised ourselves with the performance level that we brought to the tournament. Australia's only ever been to the knockout stages once in our history. We'd only ever won. I think we'd only ever won 2 games ever at the World Cup before this tournament, and to go and win 2 games in the group stage, keep 2 clean sheets, and obviously the only 2 teams that beat us were the 2 finalists. So it was an absolutely incredible experience. We, as I say, we brought a camaraderie and a performance level that we probably which players of our caliber have to bring to that level to compete with the world-class players. And to a man, every player did that, and we were obviously immensely proud of our performance. And it's going to be something for us to grow on over the next few years as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you gave quite an emotional interview after the Argentina game. Was that down to like a realization of what you had achieved, or what was it, if not?
Yeah, I think a bit of that. I think we spoke a lot about the ones who had been in Russia 4 years prior. And we spoke about the feeling that we had coming off the pitch at the end of the tournament. And obviously that was my first World Cup. It was an extraordinary experience, and I was so grateful and proud to have played. But there was a little bit of a lingering sense of regret, I think, that we maybe didn't perform to our maximum. And it was a bit of a missed opportunity, and we were so focused on absolutely leaving everything we had in every game and making sure that we gave the fullest account of ourselves. And I think that was probably the emotion that came out of it at the end, was just that obviously mental and physical exhaustion, but also just I was just so immensely proud of everybody. And we took the eventual world champions to the last kick of the last kick of the game, where Garang nearly snatched us an equalizer. So it's an emotional ride, being a part of that group as it is. But I think we weren't just content to we got beat off Argentina. We did well, no worries. We really wanted to give it a good crack, and I think that was why it was so emotional, because that realization that also that's the end of a big journey that you've been a part of. And it all kind of bubbles to the surface when you're out there.
Presumably, would it be fair to assume that Messi would be the best player you've come up against?
Yes, safe to assume. Otherworldly. Hard to explain. Players have been, we had a bit of you have that kind of realization when you're out there that, you're thinking about as a team and as individuals a plan to try and, contain him or contain them as a team. And you start to think people have been trying this for 20 years and and not found a way. But, we have to try and do that today. And, for 44 minutes, we were we were absolutely outstanding. We were disciplined, compact in our shape. We limited them to nothing. And then, the second phase of a set piece, and that's his genius. He senses that moment of, when you're not in your system, you're everything's a little bit chaotic, and he comes to life and scores a wonderful goal. And at the end of the day, he was probably the difference between the two teams.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to ask next about Jason Cummings. He would be someone that I don't think you were ever teammates of his, but I'm sure you would have been aware of his. What was the reaction of the rest of the squad when he first was involved with the Socceroos? Just in
Yeah,
terms of his personality.
I've obviously crossed paths with Jason a lot over the years, and although we didn't spend a lot of time together personally, but obviously we have a lot over the last few months. He's just been totally embraced by the football community in Australia and the team as a whole. You know, similar to Martin Boyle when he first came in, they just bring such a breath of fresh air, a different character, a different personality, a different footballing perspective, I guess, through a different upbringing and football experience in their life. So he's an absolute character. He's great in the dressing room. He's great in the on the training ground, and he's got quality on the pitch as well. And he's he's going to be a great asset to us over the next few years, I'm sure. And he's already been a great asset to the football in Australia, and with everything he's brought since he's been in the A-League.
Yeah. I also want to ask you about yourself turning up with a retro Celtic top with Viduka on the back. I think Celtic fans were loving seeing that. Were you aware of the sort of positive reaction that you got from them?
I was afterwards, yeah. I had absolutely no idea it would cause such a stir. Anybody who kind of knows me or follows my social media knows that I'm a football fashionista. I've always been interested in retro kit and football, as I say, fashion and culture. And I've got a big collection at home. And I don't know why I chose to go with that one on the day, but I'm glad I did because it got a fair bit of traction. Obviously Dukes is one of my heroes, and the fact that he wore number 36 for Celtic, and that was the number I made my debut in as well. It's got a special place in my heart. So it's definitely one of the favorites on the rack.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask what was the thinking behind that. But from what you say there wasn't really any thought to it. It was just I'm going to wear this.
Yeah, no, to be honest, sometimes you're just drawn to something, I guess, on the day. And I was actually going on holiday to Australia once the World Cup was over for a couple of weeks, and it was one of I picked out two or three that I was going to take with me to wear on the beach in Australia, and that was one of them. So yeah, it just made its way on the plane.
Yeah, good stuff. And in terms of, you've touched on it already as well, all the Australians that are now currently in Scotland, and a lot of them doing really well. Is that something that you love to see, having obviously followed that path yourself before and sort of benefited from it?
Yeah, and probably the most pleasing thing about it has been the kind of attitude shift in Australian football towards Scottish football. I think growing up playing at Kilmarnock, Ross County, and playing in the SPL, and which is I've always, as I say, been a huge fan of and follower, and probably didn't quite get the respect that we deserved in Australia at the time. A lot of people, we always used to say that you got to get down south, you got to go and try and blah blah blah, go and play here. And now with the players that we have there and the success that they've and how well they've played in the league, and we're seeing more and more young players going over there to develop, and not just young players, but players like Aaron, who's a Premier League level player coming and playing in Scotland, and he's brought huge quality to the league and to their team. And for me, it's just great to see that those bonds are always close. And it's, as you say, it was a great place for me to develop, and seeing that again with a lot of young players now.
And what do you think there's any particular reason why Australian players are taken to the football here and the lifestyle here so quickly? Obviously, one that would be there's no language barrier, but do you think there's anything that points to why they got on so well?
I think once that barrier has been kind of broken down of when a player comes over, and you can see that they I don't know. I think almost visibility is one part of it. You tend to see one player, Australian player, will go and do well, and then now we're seeing, there's a market there as well, and um, but I think the footballing culture is not too different. I'll say the dressing room culture can be quite different, and it takes a lot of boys by surprise, as it did with me when I first came over. But yeah, I think the personalities align, and I think the way we approach football and the attitude to the game is quite similar. And I think it's as I said, it's a really good combination, I think, at the moment.
I have to agree with that. One of them is Garang Kuol, who you mentioned before, on loan at Hearts just now from Newcastle. How far could you see him going in the game?
Yeah, it's hard to say. He's obviously a young player. He's still got so much development ahead of him. He's such an exciting prospect, having only worked with him in a short time over the, one pre-camp World Cup and before the World Cup and then at the tournament itself. But he's got a level of self-belief and and mental strength, which is, unusual in a player that age. He's so confident, and when he combines that with the tactical and technical development that he still has in front of him, I think he's got a really exciting future. And in playing in the UK and playing with the national team, I'm excited to see how that development progresses over the next few years. And Hearts is a fantastic place for him to do so. It's a high pressure environment, playing at a club like that, and it'll be obviously a big eye opener for him, as it has been in the beginning, but it'll only hold him in good stead moving forward.
Yeah, and do you think the Scottish Premiership is a sort of the ideal place to go on loan to try and get used to British football before going back to Newcastle?
Yeah, I think obviously that's a fantastic move for him, moving to a Premier League club, a club of that magnitude, and how well they're doing. And I think moving into an environment like Hearts is exactly similar, in their stature within the city. With Hibs and Hearts, it's as I say, it's a high pressure environment. Eyes are on you. It's a different kind of media pressure from the outside, all of these things which will come with playing at the highest level, which if and when he hopefully makes that jump. So I think it's a perfect place for him to develop.
Yeah, good stuff. And are you aware of if there's, I know you're obviously in Germany most of the time, but are you aware of if there's been more attention on Scottish football in Australia since there's been a sort of influx of players, just generally seeing how they're getting on and stuff?
Yeah, I think there has been. I think during, when I was playing, more regularly in the league a few years ago, and guys like myself and Ryan McGowan, who's obviously back there now, and there was players like Ryan Edwards and obviously Tom Rogic and things. There was always a good Australian presence in the league. But I feel like now, especially, I think Ange has probably been the biggest turning point, having not just an Australian, but a former national team coach coaching in the league is a huge pull for media and the public alike. And and now, especially with a huge core of our national team players, with Kai Rolls and Aziz Behich and Aaron Mooy, you've got probably 4 or 5 starting 11 players from the World Cup, Nathaniel Atkinson, playing in Scotland. So it's definitely pulling more eyes than in my experience in previous years.
I'm actually glad you mentioned Ange there because that was my next question. I think you've spoken a fair bit about him before, so I won't go too in depth. But there's obviously links just now. People are linking him with Leeds United. It seems to happen every time there's a job coming up in England just now. Could you
Mhm.
see him? Could you see him going down at the moment to a job like that, or do you think he would prefer to stay at Celtic for a while longer?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I'm sure he'll be getting asked that question a lot over the coming weeks and coming days and weeks. And what they've built there in the short time he's been with the club has been such a huge turnaround in identity of the way they play and the culture and of the player around the group of players. And I'm sure that will be it'll be tough to pull him away from that. I've got no doubt. But if and when the time comes that progression to go down and manage it in the biggest league in the world comes, I've got no doubt that opportunity will continue to arise for him, because, as you say, he's linked with just about every job when it comes up. So I think he'll be in the kind of privileged position of probably getting to pick and choose when he takes that moment to do it if he chooses to. You know, at the end of the day, he's managing one of the biggest clubs in the world, Champions League level. It's winning trophies. Doesn't get much better than that as it is. So it's just as a as a former player who's worked with him and a fan of the club as well. I'm just fascinated to see what the future holds, and as you say, I'm sure he'll make that decision when the time is right.
And a lot of people think that he's sort of maybe too good for the teams at the bottom end and should maybe hold out for like a Liverpool or something like that. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, it's funny, and in the attitude when it comes to players leaving the old firm and going into Premier League, it feels like they almost need to go and prove themselves at that lower level in the league before they're trusted to make the progression to the top. We saw it with Van Dijk and Wanyama and other players, not being probably trusted to go straight from a Celtic to a Man City or a Liverpool, or they almost have to go and play for a Southampton or a smaller club first and to show. But I think what those players do show is that the guys who coach and play at this level are more than capable of doing it at the very, very top. So I can see why they have that attitude in some ways, but I think it's misguided. And I think a lot of these players and managers are obviously capable of doing it at the very top.
Yeah. And do you think his style would suit down there? Obviously, it works really well at Celtic because they're expected to be the dominant team. But if he went to like a lower half English Premiership team, do you think his style would work as well when there's maybe more to compete with?
I think from my experience of working with him as a player is that at the end of the day, it's not about what if that's the right way. It's if the players buy into the identity of what he tries to do. And by no means were us as Australia one of the world's best national teams, but we were more than convinced that we could go out and play at major tournaments and compete against the biggest countries, playing with a belief in a system and an identity that he had curated. So I think that's probably if everybody buys into it, then that's all that really matters.
And just moving back on to Hibs, I don't know how much you've actually seen of them playing, but I'm sure you're aware of some of the stuff that's going on. Were you surprised with how things have went since you left? Obviously, you finished third when you were there, and it sort of went downhill after that. Have you been surprised by that?
I think the follow-up season after that was a difficult one. Kevin Nisbet's injury. The following season was a huge loss, losing those goals. And Martin Boyle's obviously had injury problems over the course as well. Now, obviously, since just before the World Cup, and I do still follow them closely. James Jago is one of my good mates. So since he's been in, I've watched all 3 games actually since he signed for the club in January, and they're obviously on a really good run the last 3 games as well. So listen, it's tough to say. It's football is obviously they held on to most of that squad after the season I played there, and I probably was a little bit surprised that it didn't kick on probably in the same way, but that's it's part of the game. And I think the infrastructure and the quality is still there within that group that they can finish the season strongly. As I say, they've been impressed with what I've seen over the last 2 or 3 games. So hopefully that good run continues and they'll keep pushing up towards that third and fourth place.
And do you think Jack Ross perhaps maybe should have been given a bit more time? Obviously, as I mentioned, when you were there, you finished third, and then it was a matter of months later he was out the door after maybe like just one bad run. Do you think he had the credit in the bank to maybe be given the time to turn it around?
Yeah, tough to say as well. I think, as you say, it was a cup final, semi-final, and a third place finish in the season prior. And as you say, it was a poor run of results that led to him losing his job. But you don't like to see, I had a great relationship with Jack, and you don't like to see anybody, losing their job under those kinds of circumstances. But obviously the club's going to make the decision they think's best for the club moving forward. But for me, I think he probably earned that right to be given a little bit more time. But you can say that just about anywhere in football nowadays, and the clubs want to make the decision, as I say, they feels best for the environment at the time, and that was the decision they chose to take.
Also mentioned Kevin Nisbet there. He obviously recently turned down the chance to Millwall when it looked like he was going to go. I think it's been well documented that he does want to go down to England. So what did you make of that when the news broke that he wasn't going to go?
Yeah, it was this interesting turn of events. I think that everybody was surprised with the story. Obviously he's a top player, full international, and one of the best all-round goal scorers in Scottish football, that's for sure. So I think probably eventually, same with him, the chance will come for him to progress. He just needs to obviously wait for the right opportunity and the right time. And he obviously didn't feel that was the right moment for him or the right club for whatever reason. I'm sure eventually that story will will become more clear, but I think there's no doubt he'll have the opportunity to progress at some time. It's just as you say, you'll hopefully get the right moment and the right opportunity that suits him and the club.
Yeah, and I've just realised there was a question that I had written down that I've missed. It was just someone else you've actually already mentioned, Aaron Mooy. I think there was a bit of doubts from Celtic fans when he first came in, but do you think he's really starting to? Oh, he is. Do you think he's really starting to prove them wrong now?
Yeah, I don't think there was ever any doubt from, similar to, when Ange first came in and there's people asking questions about, but that's, it's the nature of the game. People are going to be skeptical, but people who, know these players and know football, he's a Premier League level player. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He's, as you say, I've been fortunate enough to play with him a lot over the years. His quality is so immense, and he's on obviously a fantastic run of goal scoring form at the moment. But his all round play is just he plays with a composure and a calmness, which is you don't come across often in the game. And I'm obviously delighted that he's doing it at a club like Celtic.
Do you think they're even seeing the best of him yet? Do you think there might still be more to come?
Yeah, why not? I think we've only seen every player improve since work with Ange, working in that environment. His game's forever changing. He plays as a deep lying six for us at the World Cup. Getting the ball in those positions, and we're seeing him now playing higher, getting in the box, scoring goals. In a creative role. His game's always changing, and as you say, he's got so much quality. He can do any of those roles well.
Nice one. Well, listen, that's all the questions I had to ask. So
Cool.
that's been brilliant, really good, really
No
good.
worries.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, mate. No worries.
Thank you. All the best for the season.